Welcome back to Simple Human Design. I'm Charlie, and today we're actually going to be talking about a listener request, which is all about being able to work and live in your correct environment according to the human design system. So, this is really exciting because I get to share a little bit about my story and just what I hear from other people who have also experimented with their human design environment. So let's dive in. So your human design environment is a part of your chart that's actually quite well hidden within the human design body graph. You won't be able to necessarily see it on just like a normal chart. So you may have to have a slightly more advanced system to understand your environment. It actually comes from the arrows that you see above, on your chart, just to the left and the right of the head and the ajna center. So you'll have four arrows there, and your environment is information that is found within those arrows. Now, your environment in the human design system essentially is just a place that you and your body are gonna be feeling a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more aligned. And when you're out of that environment, let's say you're in something that's really quite different, then you may feel a little bit like your nervous system's a little bit on edge, or it just might not be the right environment for you. You might feel fatigued, you might feel scared. Doesn't really matter, but there might be something there that is telling you that you're in your wrong environment. So the environment is something that you really want to experiment with. There's lots of things in the human design system that's all about experimentation, but the environment specifically is very much all about experimenting what is good and not good for you. And I think really it just comes from the fact that, some of the environments are very literal places when you read about them, but in our lives, we can't necessarily always be in that literal place. So, for example, one of the environments is shores, so like natural shores. So if you don't live by a shore, or even near a lake or a river or anything like that, that's going to be quite hard for you to live and work on a shore. But there are things that we can sort of like implement into your daily life to help you to be around that kind of energy. So I'm going to go through all of the 6 human design environments for you very, very quickly. It's going to be a very brief overview. And I'm going to help you to understand how you can maybe like experiment with it. Okay, so try not to take it so literally. So if you find out your mountains, please don't think that you have to climb a mountain every day. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how you can enjoy your environment without actually having to be at the top of a mountain. First of all, also, if you don't know your human design environment and you have, you have no idea how to find it, please just drop me a text or a DM or something on Instagram, or email me at hello@charliegarnham.com, because I'll be able to put your details into my system and I'll give you some a little bit of an understanding of your human design environment. So if you don't know it, I suggest that you go away, find it, because when I come to yours in my podcast here today, then at least you'll be able to kind of like start to understand it just a little bit. Okay, so the first environment that we have in the human design system is caves. Okay, so when you read this, it's kind of like, oh gosh, that's a little bit weird. Like, I don't want to live in a cave. Again, it's not literal. Okay, you are designed to be somewhere that offers safety and protection. And quite often, you do enjoy having this kind of like environment that maybe only has one entrance and exit, so that you can potentially control who's coming in and who's coming out. And, it's just somewhere where you're going to have privacy. You might be thinking about maybe like creating a cozy space or like a room that's specific to you. And it really, again, it all depends on what you feel. But the experiment is, if you are caves and you've never really thought, oh, I don't have my own room, or I don't have privacy, or I don't have a room that I have that, only has one entrance and exit, the idea here is for you to experiment with that, okay? So see what you can do to, create that safe space. Make sure that it's enclosed. Make sure that it's a space that you can control. Okay, so that is just something for you to consider. Your cave's environment will support a very deep focus. It will support rest and relaxation and self-care. And also it's going to help you to really be able to retreat when you need to, okay? It might be that you retreat to your cave, but you close the door, and then therefore you can control the fact that nobody's coming in at all. So that's your cave's environment. Let me know if that's something you do already. It might be that you have naturally sort of like drawn into that kind of environment anyway, and then you realize through human design, oh yeah, that's my environment, right? So let me know how you get on with that one. Now, the second one is markets. So ever so slightly different from caves, well, actually quite a bit different from caves. This one here is all about, think of like transactions and exchanges and interaction going on. So with caves, there might be interactions going on for sure if you've like controlled the people who have come into your cave. But markets really is about, going out there and witnessing exchange. So when we think of like what a market is in real life, it's where, you buy something and you exchange money for that product, and then, the person gives that to you. You basically thrive in that transactional type of area. So for you, it might be that you go to a cafe and work. It might be that you get an awful lot of work done just because you're sitting in a cafe and there's, the tinkles going on and the cups are, being, crashed together. There's other people there, and there's quite a bit of interaction, but not too interactive so that it's distracting. Or it might not necessarily be that sort of like environment that you want to sit in, because actually markets people are very good with being able to work online as well. So if your internal market, so again, there's like two different elements to each environment that I'm not going to go into too much on each one of them. But on markets internal, this is where you might not necessarily want to be going out to a market, a cafe, whatever it is, and hearing all that exchange, but you may just be happy working online and bringing those people into your space. So again, it's a little bit like controlling who comes in. Now, the only reason why I have that deep information about that is because this is actually my environment. So I love working in cafes. I get a lot of work done, but I have to be careful with one, being distracted by other people, and that's fine. I'm usually pretty good at focusing. And then two, I don't have the energy to consistently sit in an environment like that. And my internal markets does draw me back into almost like a cave-like situation. So the room that you can see here, if you are listening on YouTube, you can basically this room here is my own personal space in my house that nobody else comes into, and I invite people into my world through Zoom essentially. So that's markets. Now let's talk a little bit about kitchens. So kitchens is a very exciting one. Kitchens is all about transformation and experimentation. So again, think of a little bit of a hustly bustly sort of vibe, but more along the line of what would happen in an actual kitchen, okay? So in an actual kitchen, you are creating something from scratch, from raw materials, you're putting them together, you're alchemizing them, and then you're creating something new. So anywhere really where something is created from a raw material, that is your perfect environment. So yes, you can literally go and work in your kitchen. That would be, the perfect place for you. But anywhere that, kind of has that creativity around it is also really, really good for you as well. So just think it's a space of transformation. It's a space of experimentation. It's a space where things are being cooked up. Startup hubs might actually be really good for you. Co-working spaces potentially. I don't don't know how much like new sort of like transformational stuff comes out of co-working spaces. But again, just experiment with it. Just see how your body feels when you're in a kitchen, and maybe even when somebody else is cooking, right? It might be that you have a partner who, is, starting to cook at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you go and work in the kitchen with them and just see what happens. See what your body feels like. Are you a little bit active? Are you like lit up by what you're doing? Okay, now let's move on to number 4. So this one is mountains. So this is where we actually step away from more of the urban style human design environment, and we step into more of the rural type of environment. So literally you can actually be on top of a mountain if you want. And really these people are people who need perspective and clarity. So there's kind of like a serenity to being a mountains sort of person. So you want to be somewhere where you get perspective. You want to be somewhere where you're kind of maybe above, like literally above people, not, we're not looking down on people, but it might be that you actually work on, the second floor of your house rather than, downstairs in the kitchen. If you are a mountains person, obviously, you can't just like, hike up the top of the mountain and, plonk your laptop out and then just work. But actually walking up mountains or hills, it doesn't have to be a mountain, actually walking up hills on a regular basis is going to help you quite a lot with just getting that perspective, just getting that clarity. And when you are at the top of the hill, take a look at your breath. See if you feel like you can breathe easy because you're higher up. Okay, so anything really where you're higher up, you might want to just literally live in somewhere where there's like a higher elevation. Where I live, because I'm quite by the coast and where there's like a major river coming out into the sea, it's a very low elevation down here. But I could go further into the county and, be up a little bit higher. And even that could, be, very, very therapeutic for you to be able to get that perspective and clarity. Now, the next human design environment is valleys, and this is all actually about connectivity and movement. So valleys is it sometimes this one is a bit of a difficult one to explain, but basically you thrive being in the low-lying areas of the world. And sometimes that means that you want to be walking along the bottom or working in a cafe that's on the bottom of high rises. So one of the places that I always say, especially if I'm working with someone local, is, there's a place within my city, Exeter, that actually J.K. Rowling used as a inspiration for Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. It's called Gandy Street, and basically when you walk through it, there's all these cafes at the bottom, but there is, a couple of sort of like 3 or 4 story buildings on each side, and it just means that that's where you feel grounded, is right at the bottom there. So you're kind of almost like the opposite of the mountains people. You can actually really thrive in environments where you can communicate very, very easily. So corridors, social hubs, connected spaces, all of these are very, 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 very good. Actual valleys themselves, so living along a river that has that sort of like deep mountains, I guess, either side. I'm thinking Spain here actually, just because I visited Spain and they've got a lot of beautiful valleys that sort of have mountainous places either side. That would also be a really amazing area for you. And actually, walking up the mountains and then coming down again, you can really start to feel in your body how deeply connected you can become by just coming back down to the earth in that way. So think kind of like Taurus vibes, earth signs, etc. It's all to do with that. And then the very last environment is shores. Okay. Now, shores is all to do with having security of, having a boundary. Okay. So if you think of what a shore is, a traditional shore would essentially be, like the end of land going into the sea. So you've got a very clear boundary there. And yes, I know you've got waves coming and going, but there's a very clear boundary. So essentially, we want to be living, working, or being in an area that's got that shoreline, that boundary there. It could be a lake, it could be a river, it could be man-made, it could be natural, it doesn't matter. But really, you will basically enjoy having that mix of being calm on that cliff, but also feeling really sort of like, a little bit of like activity and excitement. If you think about the waves that come in and sort of like break on the sea, there's kind of movement there. Okay. So there's very much like a balance in between the calmness and then the movement and the activity and the excitement as well. So these kind of spaces can really help you to navigate your transitions in life, to, have a bit of clarity as well. This kind of comes in here on the shorelines too, and really get a perspective on, what needs to be balanced in your life. So again, think of like Libra kind of vibes here as well. It can be urban settings, it can be natural settings, completely up to you. But that is kind of where you are designed to thrive, essentially. So if you don't live by a shoreline, make sure you're taking time to go out and, sort of like be along a shore. And it's the same with all of your environments. If you don't live where your particular environment is, either naturally or, sort of like as you design your house, for example, just make sure that you are doing it once in a while, because when you get out there and you experience your environment, you will get perspective, you will get clarity, and you will find that things will get done as well. So let me know what you think. Each environment can go deeper than what I have mentioned. So this is just a brief overview of your human design environment. Let me know how your experiment goes. See what happens to you if you do start to experiment with your environment, because it really is the most wonderful sort of like part of the human design system to experiment with. Basically, because you can't get it wrong, really. But just a little word of warning, if you do start to feel fatigue in any area of your life, this is where you want to check out your environment. So, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Simple Human Design. I'm Charlie, and I will see you very soon with another episode. Ta-ta for now.